We will get started. I want to welcome everybody to this webinar. Thank you for joining. We're going to talk about how to get the most out of your CapePack cloud features. This is an informational webinar, so it's intended to help our customers see some of the benefits that they can realize from these cloud features that are in CapePack. Just a quick note, not to worry that this is not going to be a PowerPoint presentation. So I only have about 3 slides or so, and then we're going to jump right into a hands-on demonstration. Just a couple of housekeeping words before we get started. So this session will be recorded. And we'll share it with all of those attendees within a few days after the webinar. I'd also like to ask that if you have any questions during the presentation or during the webinar, that you use the Q&A window and not the chat window to submit your questions, and we'll review them before the end of the webinar. And then finally, if you have any audio or video problems during the webinar, it's recommended that you try logging out and then logging back in again to see if that fixes the problem. So just to introduce myself and the presenter today, I am Richard Deroux. I am the product manager at ESCO for CapePack as well as Artios CAD. I've been with ESCO for just over 12 years now, and been in the graphic arts and printing and packaging industry for over 30 years. And I'm joined today by Kim Carl. Kim, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm the Cape product owner. I have been with Cape for 20-some years now, 19 with Cape Systems, and then since then with ESCO as the Cape product owner.
Okay, so what we plan on covering today is we'll look at addressing some of the common challenges that we hear about from our customers and that you may also be familiar with and be faced with as well. The first is about determining if the corrugated board that's being used for a particular packaging and that is going to be put into a pallet configuration will hold up to the load as well as the conditions that it's going to be subjected to. Now, there's a lot of formulas that you can use for this, and you can get out your calculator or your Excel spreadsheet and start trying to figure that out, or maybe your company has its own formula that it can use or that you've used. But the question is, does it take everything into consideration, all the load considerations and environmental conditions and that type of thing? And then what happens if you change the stacking configuration? Then you have to recalculate everything all over again. The other challenge that you may have is once you've palletized your product, how can you easily add different other features like corner post and strappings and layer pads and shrink wrap and the like? And you want to be able to see what the impact is of these additions on those maximum load constraints that you may have defined. And then, of course, you want a good visual representation of all of these load format conditions as well. And then finally, once you have all of this data, what's the most efficient way for being able to share the information with your shipping department or estimator that has to run cost, or your customer or supplier, depending on where you are in the supply chain? So these are the things that we'll look at. And what you'll see in just a minute from Kim is how the latest CapePack cloud features can solve some of these common challenges. You'll see the online compression strength analysis that's available with options for environmental factors and ways to manage databases of different corrugated materials, for example. And then Kim will show the online load formatting editor with the simple user interface for adding all the formatting options as well as adjusting layers, and the graphic representation and feedback that you get from all of the changes and the impact of those changes on your maximum load conditions. And then finally, with a centralized database in the cloud for all of the solutions and all the reports, you'll see how easy it is to share the solutions and the reports and collaborate with other stakeholders in the supply chain. So with that, I will turn it over to Kim to take a closer look and have a live demonstration of Cape-Pack and the latest cloud features.
Thank you, Richard. Clear the screen here. So what we're going to look at today is the cloud, but I wanted to just briefly mention the desktop component. So right now, Cape-Pack is still a hybrid desktop and cloud solution. You'll still do your data entry and calculating on the desktop, and then that gets uploaded to the cloud, which is what we're really going to concentrate on. But here's what your desktop looks like, and you guys have probably all seen this before. I'm going to close this, and we're going to go to our cloud. So here's our cloud. Every company that has a subscription to Cape-Pack will have a cloud database built for them when they log in. And it is a database. It saves all your data that you upload. You can see in here we have over 1,000 solutions in our ESCO employee option. You can see I have single and mixed solutions. So this lets you quickly and easily sort, search, etc., and find what you're looking for. In addition, when you first upload something, it'll be bold on this screen. So it's easy to find. It's always going to be the one at the top. But if you have multiple people using the system, you could have multiple options up here. So the ones that are in bold are the ones that haven't been looked at yet. One of the nicest things about the cloud is that it is incredibly easy to learn and use. Most the screens have one line of information at the top on how you open something, how you run something, how you create a report, etc. So we're going to look at this solution right here that we pre-uploaded. And I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. Now, when you double click on it, it's going to take you to the report builder. And the report builder has several options you can see across the top. So the first one is the report builder. And you have a WYSIWYG report along with the instructions on how to build a report on this screen. And there they are right up there. Okay, so first thing, you're going to select a data template. We have select this middle one here, which basically has some data at the top, graphics in the middle, and more data at the bottom, along with notes. You could use any one of the three that you want just by clicking on it. Then we get to pick how many pictures do we want to see on the screen, how many graphics. And I'm going to go with 3 graphics, so I'm just going to click on this, and it's going to update it to 3 graphics. So I have my full palette load, I have a top view of my palette, and this is called a palette plus layer. Now, that's nice, but I would really like to see my case, so I'm just going to go over here and grab my case and drag it over and drop it. Now I have my case, and I can look at any one of these. I can rotate any of these just by dragging them. I can scroll in and scroll out if I wanted to see, for example, how the boxes sit on the boards. I can see here that I have one that's missing slightly, one of the deck boards, and over here the same thing. So those are the types of things that you can do with just the normal control features on the screen. You can also click on the pencil and do, for example, multi-stack. I want to see this 2 palette loads high. And then again, I can still spin it and turn it and see what I want to. If I decide I want to switch these around, I could just grab that little plus sign and move them. And then again, I can spin them. Right? This little download lets you download a graphic of that one item in that window. What else can I do just with the report preview? Recently added is the ability to change your user text. So you can come down here and click the pencil and then just come in here. Whatever you want to put in there. and it'll update at the bottom. From this point, the next thing that we would normally think about doing is collaboration, but instead of doing that next and saving this report next, I'm going to move on to formatting your load. But you'll also see on here that you can change your units of measure on the fly. You can change your language on the fly. So if you want to send this to Sweden, you can change it to Swedish if you wanted to, just for the report, not the screen. And you can also select load profiles, which we'll get to in just a moment. So that's your basics on reporting. Before we show you the sharing, I'm going to go on to format load. So format load is right here. You just click on that little tab and it'll open up. And you have two different options under format load. You can do additions or you can do layer actions. And I'm going to actually show you layer actions first. And what I want to do here is I want to alternate some of these layers. Now I'd like to keep the bottom 3 layers column stacked so it protects my compression strength of the boxes, but I would like some stability too. So I'm just going to alternate that third one right there. So what I'm going to do, this is layer 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they're listed the same way here. I'm going to click on 4. And I'm going to say that I want to alternate it in the width. But I don't want to alternate them because there's only one. So I'm just going to flip this layer. And there we go. I have my stability already built in. Now, once that's done, I'm going to go over and see what kind of load protection I need. So I'm going to go to additions. Now, there's lots of different things in here. Those of you that have been using the Cape desktop for a long time will see that there's a few new things in here, but a lot of them have been in the system for a long time. But they were in the desktop, they're arranged in different places. So what we've done with the cloud is we've consolidated everything. So now everything you want to do is all on this one screen in this one list. Added was you'd be able to insert a pallet base. So perhaps you have a very tall load that's actually 2 loads high, but you need to stick a pallet in the middle of there. This option gives you the ability to do that. So I'm going to put this under layer 4. And it's going to add a pallet load in there. Okay, and as you can see now, this allows you to have 2 pallet loads with different quantities on each pallet load, which is a nice feature that we weren't able to do in the past. You'll also see down here that we have old product dimensions, new product dimensions, and maximum. So this is what you entered as your maximums, your load maximums when you started your analysis in CAPE. The new product dimensions with our formatting, and you can see that one's in red. That means that it's gone over my maximum. And so before I put that pallet in, it was 50.5 inches tall. Now it's 56 inches tall, and my maximum was 55. So I've gone over my limit. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And it goes back to where it was. You can also add a pallet base cap if you want to. Let's do a nice inverted one. So now if we wanted, then we could strap this all together to keep the load more stable. Take that off. I can put in layer pads. I can put in layer trays. Let's do a layer tray on the bottom here. I click on layer tray. I click the what layer I want, or if I wanted them on all the layers, I could do the select all option at the top. But I just want it on layer 1. And then I have the option to pick profiles. Now we've added some profiles in here to start, but I'm going to show you in just a few minutes how you make your own. But I'm going to say that we want a C flute layer pad, and it fills in the thicknesses. I can change the color if I want, and then I just apply it. And it's going to draw that layer tray down at the bottom. Maybe I want a top board on there as well. So let's click on top board. And let's make one out of plywood. Nah, we'll do C flute. And I have my C flute top board. I have my layer tray. Let's put some corner posts on there. You also have a picture frame, which is a wooden frame that's used for load stability. You throw it up on the top of the load and then strap it down or use your stretch wrap. But let's do some corner posts. Let's do some vertical corner posts. We'll make those out of 30-point fiberboard. The load's looking good so far. Let's put some horizontal straps on there. And we have 2 options here, metal and poly, which is just what we call them. And let's do some vertical straps as well. And we use poly for the other one, so you can see the difference. Now you notice that those are angled as they would be in real life. Okay, and last but not least, we have a shroud that we've added as well, which gives you a corrugated or some type of cover that goes down over the entire pallet load. But I want to go ahead and put on strut trap. And there we have our finished load. And you'll notice that my vertical straps are on the outside of the strut trap so that it doesn't interfere with the structural integrity of those straps. Nice shiny picture. Now we're done. Now that was, 6 or 7 steps that I went through, maybe less. You certainly probably don't want to do that all the time. So what you can do is you can come up here and save this. So I can save it as a new profile. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Kika 3. Oh, I already got one of those 4. Okay. And then I just hit the plus sign. It's going to now put that in my list. Now what's really fun to do, I'm going to clear all this load formatting and go back to my report builder page. When I save that, it saves it here. So now if I have a specific customer or a specific vendor or just a specific plant formula that we always use, at this plant, they always use stretch wrap and horizontal corner posts and a top cap, and that's what they use. You can create that ahead of time, and then you don't have to go into the format load every time. You can just apply it in here. There's no limit on how many of these you can create and use. That's kind of fun. Now what I can do, I've lost my case, so I'm going to pull this over here. I can go into to share this, I can go into my 3D viewer. And I can share this with a customer. I can email them the link and they'll get the link of the screen I'm about to show you. For us, I'm just going to go ahead and open it so you can see what it looks like. You can see this is opened in a separate tab in CapePack. This is not part of CapePack, it's outside. But you have the same kind of flexibility and functionality in here. If you want to look at the case, you can pull the case over and look at it. You have options to open flaps or show content, and if you use those on your main report page, they'll be available here. So you have all your information. Up at the top, you have your product name and product code. You can also put in a project name and a customer name if you want. I chose not to do that when I uploaded. So a very nice feature to be able to save with your customers, vendors, other plants, management, whoever you want to share this with that doesn't have a Cape subscription. Now you can also print, but before I do that, I'm going to show you compression strength. And before I do that, I'm going to show you how to make those changes to format load that we talked about. So you're going to go up to your settings at the top and go to format load settings. And in here is where you add all the different types of things that you want in there. So if I want to put in top board, for example, I've got right now a sea flute and a plywood. Maybe I want to add another one. I can pick metric or imperial. There's separate databases for each. And I just do plus. £5, and the thickness is 0.5. It's really thick, and it's green. And that'll appear in my list. And anytime if I decide I don't want that one anymore, I can click on it and delete it from the list here. And you can do that with all of the different options here. So your stretch wrap, shroud, vertical straps, each one has their own little option here. And again, for either imperial or metric, whichever you choose. So let's close that and go back to my report page. So next thing, lost my case. Next thing I want to do is I want to run compression strength. So compression strength is a program that lets you determine what type of board grade you should make your cases out of, or what type of board grade you should buy for your cases to make sure that it can withstand the rigors of shipping and packing and storage. Compression strength is located right here. It will auto calculate with whatever your defaults are when you open up the screen. Here I've got a picture of my case and my pallet with dimensions around it. Over here, basic information, how many cases per layer, layers per load, what's the weight, what's the pallet, total pallet load weight, pallet height, etc. And right down here, 193.45545, that's the weight on the bottom case. So that is the strength of box that I'm going to need to have to support this load. All right, now what is that based on? Here's my compression strength information down here. That's based on my humidity level, my days, how long my cases are stored, stacked up on this pallet, loaded, whatever internal support there is. This is a 21-pound box. It's very likely that there's something in that box that's going to support part of the load. The case won't have to do it all. But in this case, I'm going to say 0. How high I've got my pallet stacked, this is too high. What type of partition I want. In this case, we've chosen by default no partition, but maybe we do want a partition in there. You have 3 options here. You can choose a partition type, and you click on this, and it'll show you a picture of all the different partitions, what their identifying number is, and what extra support they lend. So if I choose number 6, I'm adding 50% more strength to the box than the box itself would provide. So I can choose that. I also have the option to do a custom partition. And in my custom partition, I want to say how many lengths of corrugated are there in the case and how many widths of corrugated are there in the case. And then what the program will do is add up all those linear inches and actually calculate the key formula on those. So if I say it's 3 by 2, then it'd be 3 lengths of corrugated and 2 widths, and it adds that up. And of course, that would probably be something like a cellular divider, something like this one, although that's 2 and 3, but similar in that. What do I want to make that case out of? Do I want to use the same material that I'm using for the box, or do I want a particular specific board grade? Maybe I want a triple wall, but I'm only going to have a single wall box. Or you can just use the case material. What type of case do I want? Is it a bliss? Is it a die loader? This program calculates based on a key formula. The key formula is calculated based on an RSC. So if it's a different case than an RSC, then it'll have a factor that compares how strong is that box based on my RSC. So like my HSC down here, maybe it's 90% as strong. So it'd have a factor of 0.9. And I'll show you those database options here in just a minute. But I'm going to say this is an RSC for now. How much printing is on that box? Actual printing on the corrugated, not a laminated sheet or a label. But up to about 25% is simple. This is 50%, up to about 75%, and up to complete coverage. So let's say that this box has complete coverage. I have 3 different options for the edge crush type. I can use ring crush, stiffy, or custom. Ring crush is the one I'm going to choose for this. And my layers interlocked. Now my layers on this load, only one of them is interlocked. The bottom 3 layers are column stacked. And in compression strength, what we're really wanting to know is how much is that case on the very bottom? How much can that withstand? As long as your cases on the bottom 2 layers are column stacked, we wouldn't subtract the interlock layers option. If they were alternated all the way to the bottom, then you would want to go ahead and check on that right there. Is the box turned sideways? Is it horizontal fluting or is it vertical fluting? Solid, is the pallet surface solid? So all of these are different factors that go into your load, right? Or your case itself. Your production factor, maybe you have a machine that damages your boxes or condenses the corrugated in them more than the others. So, and whenever you use that particular machine for a job, you know that the box is going to lose 10% of its strength. So you can go ahead and put that extra 10% production factor in here. And you notice that when I click on this, it gives you a definition of each of these fields. Whatever one of these that you click on, it'll tell you what the definition of that is on your screen, so you don't have to go look it up. Safety margin is how much extra strength will you have at the end of the box's life in a percentage form. And then we also have the option for seasonal strength. So seasonal strength would be if I have a case that I'm making in some place that's hot and dry, and I'm sending it to some place that's hot and humid. When the seasonal factors kick in, for example, in one of the southern states like Louisiana, in the winter, they make a box, it's fine, but that box sits around and doesn't get actually used until the summer. You're going to have an extra seasonal factor that you couldn't count on that winter. So that's what this is for. It lets you give an additional degradation to your box based on seasonal factors. Kind of a long-winded explanation, but that's what that is. So I'm going to run this with no partition, and I'm just going to calculate it. And it'll give me the basic information that I need here. And you'll see that it gives me all the information here, and I'll explain what these are here in a second, what those are. But if I wanted to change something, maybe I want to put in a partition type of this one. I can just click on that. And it'll give me new information on what I want to see here. All of these are sortable. So I can sort by any one of them that I want to. These are basically going to be the same, sorted the same way. But if I want to just see the A flutes, or the B flutes, or the C flutes, I can sort by flute or by board description, whichever you want. You can turn any of these off or on the way that you want. And there's actually some extra fields here that I want to show you, but they've been turned off in our database, so I'll show you how to turn those back on. But based on this, then I can decide, okay, well, what board do I need? I need this to be 193.545, which means I need a safety factor of 0. They don't have it on here. Safety margin of 0 in order to make this work, which is what this is. I can stack it exactly 2 loads high. I have actually not quite as much strength as I need, right? You see we've got safety factors and loads high. These are 187. Let's sort this by loads high. I know I need at least 2. I need a load of at least 2. What do we got down here for safety margin? I've got some of my columns turned off. I'm going to go turn them on so you guys can see everything. Again, we're going to go up here. We're going to go to database. And then I'm going to go to my default factors. Down at the bottom in this default factors, I'll explain more of this in a while. We have all these different options that you can turn on. I'm going to turn them all on so you can see them. And I'm going to turn off safety factor. All right, there we go. All right, so we've got board description, burst test, material combination, flute, base strength. This is McKee formula strength. Production strength. This would include printing. Redo this, printing. Whether or not your fluting is horizontal. Your case type is included in there. Your partition materials are included in there. Let's turn on our partition again. So we got board description, burst, material, flutes, base strength. Now you see a difference in production strength because we've changed our type of case and we've added a partition. We changed our printing and we've added a partition. Those things affect the production strength. And then life cycle strength is at the end of the life cycle of the box. Okay. Now in here, I have safety margin required turned off, which means that it's going to show me every single board. Okay. I'm going to go safety margin required and turn that on. And that will only show me boards that meet that 193.545 or higher. And that, what it's looking for is the life cycle strength. So this is the strength after the end of the box's life cycle. The box has sat on a pallet, it's been loaded, it's been stacked maybe 2-3 high in the warehouse, it's been shipped onto trucks. At the end of the box's life cycle, when we're taking the product out of the box and throwing the box away or recycling it, this is what it will still hold. I asked for a safety margin of 0. The closest safety margin we have is 15, right? That's 15% stronger than it needs to be. Right, and then I have no seasonal factor, but that's turned on as well. So now what I want to do is I want to figure out, okay, what do I really want here? Well, I'm going to really want a safety margin that is higher than 15. I'm going to need it to be at least 20% for that, so that I have my own peace of mind, right? Compression strength will only help you with top to bottom compression of the case. There's lots of other factors that degrade the case. Shaking as it's rolling across the road in a truck, impact, sudden stops, sharp turns where the truck's tipping, force put on the pallet. So there's lots of things that will affect that. I want to make sure that I allow at least 15 to 20%, but for me personally, I like 20 of extra strength in my case so that I know I'm not going to have a stacking failure. So now it's showing me only those cases that have at least 20, right? I'm going to put them in order by that. So as I go down the list, they'll get stronger and stronger and stronger. So this means that it will hold my 193.545 pounds plus an extra 22.64%. I have some wiggle room in there. I can stack it 2.4 loads high, and I needed 2. So once I get this all done, I want to figure out what cases I want to recommend to my customer, for example. What do I want on the report? So I'm going to turn these off, and I'm only going to do this C flute and this C flute. Those are the only 2 I want them to see. Okay. Double wall, I'm going to turn them off, and triple wall, I'm going to turn them off. Okay. And when I'm done, I'm going to save the analysis. Now I'm going to go back to my report builder. And there's my compression strength. All right, and there's my box. There's my top view. There's my 3D view. Again, I can share this with my 3D viewer, or I can also save the report. To save the report, you can share it. I'm going to just download it. And there's what my report looks like. Compression strength on the bottom. And if I want to, I can scroll in, get a nice close look. I can also save this. If I save it, then anybody can get to that PDF for this report just the way that I see it on my screen without having to go through the steps that I went through to do the compression strength and the load formatting and all of that. And it'll also give me a little PDF. And once it's saved, I have the option of doing all these things. I can download it. I can email it as an attachment, email it as a link to our server, copy the link to the clipboard, delete the saved PDF whenever I don't need it any longer. So those are the options that I have. I'm looking across my list, and I think I have covered everything. Anything you can think of, Richard, that I need to go over?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered everything that we talked about. Let's see, you have a couple of questions that came in through the Q&A. One question was, I think when you showed the adding the pallet in the middle there, the question was, can you do a mixed load on a separate pallet when you insert the pallet base, like boxes A and B on the bottom and B and C on the top?
No, not yet.
Mixed load, no. Okay.
That's a good idea though for our display palette when we get to adding the
Mhm.
formatting to that.
The other question was about getting access to all of these features, if these are included with Cape Pack or are they additional features. And everything that Kim showed just now is if in the latest version of Cape Pack, which is Cape Pack 18.1, if you have a subscription license to Cape Pack, then you get access to the cloud features as well. So that once, as Kim showed in the very beginning, once you calculate your solutions, then you upload it to the cloud, and then you have access to all of those features on the cloud. One other question that just came in, will these features be ported to the on-premise version of Cape? I know the path that we're on right now actually is actually just the opposite. We're actually moving all of the features that are in the desktop version, and we're moving it to the cloud, or as cloud features. So we're basically bringing the entire Cape product to be SaaS product, actually, so that it would be something that you can just access from any web browser. So that's where we're going with that.
I had a couple questions on the chat too. Can you make two half pallets on a master pallet? Yes, you can do that. You would do that on the desktop. Eventually it'll be on the cloud, but right now you would do that on the desktop and then you upload it and you would have the two pallets already loaded on. It's called a master pallet on the desktop. So what you do is you set that up, you select your smaller pallet when you're doing your data entry, and then there's an option for master pallet, and you select the larger one for that. Once you're happy with the load on the smaller pallet, then you would go to tools, I believe, fill master pallet base, and it will create that master load for you. Is there a way to display all components used on the report, such as polybands, stretch wrap, etc.? No, not yet, but that's been suggested before, and that's something that we're working on for, if not the next release, then the one right after that. If we have time, we'll get it in the next one, because I think that's a great idea to have a little chart saying, you know, this is what you've got. This is a slip sheet, this is a layer tray, all that. Where you integrate inserts into your compression strength, can you customize your insert in RDO's CAD and then add it to the insert list? No, not at this time. There's no way to build new inserts in that list. When we had a workshop about what we should do about that, and it was decided that we would use that, the compression strength. Let me show you on the screen. Because there's nothing visual on here anyway. What you would use is you would use the custom partition to do that. How many links of corrugated and how many widths inside the case. And that's what you would use for that. In this particular part of the program, drawing it wouldn't make any difference anyway. You still wouldn't see it. You're only going to get a data report. So this seemed to make more sense and was easier to implement. That's why we did it that way.
I got another question that asks, can you have imperial and metric dimensions at the same time displayed?
No, not yet. That is something you can do on the desktop with a custom report, but right now that's not an option in the cloud. It will be eventually. It's something that a lot of folks have to have, so we'll have to do it. When we do that, the report is almost for sure going to be at least 2 pages long because there's just too much data to fit it on one. Okay, I had another question. So for the calculation, it worked for FEFCO 201 style. And that's right. 201 or our regular slotted container RSC, that's what the McKee formula works on. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more came in. Is there a way to make a custom template in the cloud format like you can in Artios CAD with
No.
custom selection boxes, etc.?
No, but what you can do is you can go up to your settings. There's a lot of things that you can turn on and off under settings. So you can upload, this is, you can see we have a customer logo in here right now, but it's turned off. You can change your package ID, show your product information, show actual net weight, show or not show your user text. You can turn the dimension labels on or off. Customer name and project number are extra fields you can put on the report. And then you can set it to ID or OD. That would be the labels around your case. Do you want them to be inside dimensions or outside dimensions? You can make it either load product or product with load height. Decimal places you can change in here.
Also had a question come in. How do you subscribe to Cape Pack? Can I have these cloud features in the desktop format too? So again, as I mentioned earlier, we're not migrating, if you will, these features to the desktop. We're doing it the opposite. We're actually adding more value and more features to the cloud component of Cape Pack, and eventually all of Cape Pack will be, all your calculations and data entry and everything will be done on the cloud. And it's available now as a subscription. If you already have a perpetual license of Cape Pack, then we do have options to migrate that license from a perpetual desktop license to a subscription license. Let's see, no more questions on my end. Anything on your side, Kim?
No, no more in the chat. Anything else, guys?
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for attending.